Right. This is issue 32 of The Thing, near the end of his series. Only 4 more after this one. This is an interesting issue, or rather, an interesting run. This was during The Thing's career as a professional wrestler. And I will explain that in due time. But this is credited to Mike Carlsberg, editor of the Superman books in the 90s. The man who gave us the Triangle era of Superman. And you know how much I love the Triangle era of Superman. And this is edited by Marky Mark J. In one of my typical claims, this is co-written by Marky Mark J. Easily. You can tell with these issues of Thing. Marky Mark was into wrestling. In his first run on this character, in Marvel 2 for 1, he was already doing wrestling stories and introducing superpowered wrestlers and having the superpowered wrestlers wrestle superpowered wrestlers. I don't mean to demean or belittle Mike Carlsberg, or in other books, Daniel LaRusso or Mark Spector. But Marky Mark was always a plot guy, and you can feel when he is driving a plot along, and when certain parts of the script become his writing. We have an intro scene here with Thing on a plane, and the landing gear is knackered, so he has to use his muscles to help land the plane. He has to help lock the wheel in place himself. He has to be the landing gear. I don't really know. I am not a pilot. I admit it is a maybe good scene to show off the title character. So Thing, he returns to his current home, a hotel, and he finds someone poking around. He finds a private eye ransacking his hotel room. The PI is looking for Thing's current friend and teen sidekick Major Victory. Major Victory has run away from home, and he is currently acting as Thing's unofficial manager during Thing's pursuit of wrestling stardom. Let's explain that now. This series launched with Jason Byrne as the main creative, and it kind of shambled around for a bit until Secret Wilds happened. And then Jason Byrne kept Thing on Beyond a Man's World for a while and did fantasy-type stories with him. Then Mike Carlsberg took over from Jason Byrne, along with Marky Mark J becoming editor. On issue 23, the character was brought back to Earth, and he officially left Fantastic Force to go off on his own. He decided to become a wrestler. There is a wrestling circuit for people with super strength, and he became a performer. I was going to talk more about that, but I think this one is going to have to be loaded with information about Major Victory instead. But here we see things sparring, we see him training with another wrestler, a guy called Speedo. Speedo never appears again. I wish this wasn't Speedo. I wish, instead, this was the actual notable character that Thing befriended on the circuit. I think, I am Ed Cannoning that Speedo is actually just D-Man. He was trying out a new wrestling name for a week and it didn't stick because Speedo is a shit wrestling name. But that's right, D-Man was introduced in this run. In issue 28, he is among the roster of wrestling talent that the Unlimited Class Wrestling Federation have. Further evidence of Marky Mark being more involved. D-Man, of course, goes on to have a massively significant role in Captain America, and even the Unlimited Class Wrestling Federation have substantial appearances in Marky Mark's Captain America run. Right now, though, we have Major Victory wearing a padded costume, trying to audition to be a wrestler. He is doing this because he thinks that hiding in a costume and hiding in the ring will keep the private investigator from locating him. Silly plan, innit? Major Victory doesn't have any super strength, so instead he is using his telekinesis to make it look like he is super strong, to make it seem like he has super strength. It could be an interesting idea to explore in another issue, actually. A wrestler using powers besides strength to mimic strength. I do think it is about time for me to explain Major Victory, and we all know how complicated his history is. The character was introduced in Marvel Superheroes 18, the first appearance of the Galactical Guardians. He was one of them, the one in purple. He was an astronaut from Earth that in the 20th century was sent into space and held in cryogenic suspension for near 1,000 years. And so he woke up in the year 3000, but he was stuck in his containment suit because his body wasn't strong enough to survive all that time and space and the harsher environment of the future. This is a future counterpart of Major Victory, though. He is called Justice, and he is an ongoing member of the Galactical Guardians throughout the years and various different Galactical Guardians series. He stopped wearing purple after the first appearance. Major Victory, let's call him Vic. He was introduced in Gigantic Sized Defenders number 5. When the Galactical Guardians travelled back in time, they came to our present. Justice tracked down his past self, his younger self, before he became an astronaut and went into space. This was our introduction to this version of the character, Vic. He was still only a kid in Gigantic Size Defenders number 5. He would one day grow up to become the Galactical Guardian. Then, in Marvel 2-for-1 69, 69, which is a great issue by Marky Mark G, we revisit the Galactical Guardian and his younger counterpart. This is where things diverge, because Vic, the younger Vic, manifests his muty powers of telekinesis before his future version did. This cements that his future is not that of the Galactical Guardians. They no longer share a past. The timeline diverged here, and so Justice from the future is no longer a future version of Vic. He is still Vic, but just from an alternative timeline. He is from a different future. Which brings us to this series. And I really like the role they gave Major Victory. Although a teen now, he is 17 in this issue. And here, this is actually his first time wearing a superhero costume. And it is more or less what he wears in his next major appearances too. But, to backtrack again, Thing discovered Vic had ran away from home and was now working as a magician at a circus. Little did he realise it was that bloody circus of crime again. But Vic was using his TK to fool people into thinking it was stage magic being performed. After Thing shut down the circus, Vic became his travelling companion, his kid sidekick. And it is a really nice idea and a good role. We have given Thing someone who he can interact with in every issue and who looks to him for guidance. And Thing gets to be responsible and caring for this wayward child. Very, very good choice. And again, it seems more coherent than it should, because Thing did share an important experience with Vic in Marvel 2-for-1. So it makes sense that Vic would see Thing as a mentor and a pal. Of course, after this, Vic goes on to be Major Victory in New Warriors, one of the founding members of New Warriors, and one of the mainstay members, except for when he was in prison. And we will, surprisingly, come to that on the very next page. One of Vic's stories in New Warriors concerned his dad. And you might be unaware of this, but it began here. We learn that the reason Vic ran away from home was because his dad had begun hitting him. His dad, unable to deal with his son being a powerful mutie and fearful of his son's powers, began beating him. And so eventually Vic had enough and ran away from home. And now he confesses this to Thing and says that he cannot go home. His dad will hit him again. And he wants Thing to help hide him and defend him from the investigator that his parents have hired to track him down. I don't think the emotional weight of this works as well in the middle of a wrestling match, but it is trying to tackle a subject, and it's not gracefully doing so, but it's not abysmal in its efforts. This page on its own is decent enough. It is when you add in the plot elements around it where the tone is a bit muddled. The abusive dad will end up being a giant plot point for the character in New Warriors. It will be one of his big character arcs and developments. His dad being abusive towards him, and Major Victory dealing with that, which doesn't go well for him. It is interesting to see that arc began here. But now I am skipping a few pages to get to the resolution. It's not a bad ending. We learn that it was his mum who hired the PI to track him down. His mum was wanting to find Vic because his dad has gone away. His dad is having therapy now, and he is trying to control his rage. And so things have changed at home. And she wanted to find Vic and tell him to come home, or at least know that his dad has accepted that he has problems and that he shouldn't hit a kid. It is a hopeful resolve, but I have already let loose the spoiler that it doesn't stick. His dad will be smacking him again and again. The cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, a little boy blue and the man in the moon. When you're coming home, son, I don't know when. We will be together when. If you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain. Ooh, baby, baby, it's a wild world. And you can go your own way, go your own way. You could call it another lonely day, go your own way. I'm your Venus, I'm your fire, your desire. I think this is okay. I think this issue, it deals with an idea, and it's not tacky, and it doesn't feel like a PSA. In fact, the worst parts are when it feels the need to add some action or levity between those serious parts. I skipped it, but the showdown with the detective is dreadful. I skipped it for a reason. This is an important part of New Warriors history for sure, and if you love the New Warriors and you didn't know about this issue or this run that features Major Victory, maybe I have done a service and let you know. Great Don Wilson art too. I hadn't mentioned that yet. 7 thumbs up.